Prime Minister, about these National Security Council meetings, when you were sworn in as Prime Minister in December 2018 and thereafter, did you check to see when the next National Security Council meeting was being convened?
So general habit was, the practice was for the President's office or Defence Ministry to inform us when the next National Security Council meeting was to take place.
So in 2018 until October, how many such meetings had taken place?
I cannot recollect, but we would have had about once a month or so. Sometime we didn't have in April, I remember. But I couldn't.
But it was not a regular meeting.
No, these were more like monthly or once in 5 weeks or sometimes once in 3 weeks. But
So whenever the President convened the meeting, it happened.
yeah, it happened.
You said in February you got to know that there had been a meeting of the National Security Council. Did you get to know of the meeting after the meeting or before?
After the meeting.
So did you check to see why you were not informed of that meeting?
In fact, I asked the IGP, and he said he was also not informed of the meeting. Then subsequently, I think I heard from you, I can't recollect, that they were not going to meet any longer.
No, this state of affairs came about after what happened on the 26th of October.
Yes.
And although you were subsequently sworn in as Prime Minister, there was no National Security Council meeting that you attended. And when you found out that there was a meeting, also you knew that you had not been invited for that meeting. Did you not think it necessary at that stage to inform the country that the Prime Minister was being not accommodated at the National Security Council meetings?
Well, I was not accommodated, but then the National Security Council are not meeting anymore, so I couldn't go to a functus body.
But that information was given to you by the IGP, who was also not invited for the meeting.
Yes.
Did you not inquire from the Defence Secretary, who ordinarily would have been the person who intimated to members of the National Security Council about the meetings?
I remember I did ask him, and he said not meeting anymore.
He also told you they were not meeting anymore.
I think I discussed it with State Minister also, who said he had not been summoned either. So it's yes, yeah.
Now, Honourable Prime Minister, now, in the background of all this information that you yourself have given us about the rise of extremism, about connection to Sri Lankans' connection to IS, and so on, when you found out from the IGP and the Defence Secretary that the National Security Council was not going to meet again, did you not think it important to, one, communicate with the President about that, and two, keep the country informed about this?
Well, actually on the IS, we had no new information, as I told the chairman. There were meetings regularly. I was informed about the anti-drug drive. The focus has been on drugs.
No, so did you not think it important to communicate with the President and ask him why he had discontinued with the National Security Council meetings?
I asked him, I didn't ask him that, but I said, I want a separate Minister of Law and Order brought in, because I thought that's the best way to deal with the situation. And even earlier, I always dealt through the Minister of Law and Order. That was which was the most effective way.
You had, recommended to the president by that time the appointment of a minister for law and order.
Yes.
But the president did not accede to that request.
No, he said he wanted to finish the investigation about that assassination attempt. And after that he would
Which
inform.
assassination attempt?
There was a report on an assassination, attempted conspiracy against the president.
So, by that did the president mean that investigation into the alleged assassination attempt on himself be investigated while he was in charge of the Ministry
Thought
of
he
Law
should
and
be,
Order?
he should be in charge till it was over.
Did you think that was a suitable thing
Well,
to do?
since the inquiry had started under him, we thought, well, whatever be the constitutional position, let it be over there.
So, constitutional provision, do you concede, Prime Minister, was that the President could not have the Law and Order Ministry under himself,
It had to be a separate subject.
and that the President could not hold that subject?
That was my view.
Now,
The
going
question was, what is defense? What is the interpretation given to defense? That's where the
this arose when the 19th Amendment was passed in Parliament. On that day, there were two separate ministries for defense and law and order.
yes, there was, to my recollection.
And when a transitional provision was accommodated in the 19th Amendment, it only mentioned defense. It did not mention law and order as one that the President could hold.
You mentioned defense.
Defense, Mahavali, and environment.
Yes,
Yeah.
to my,
Not law and order.
no, there was no separate law and order there.
Now, if we go back to the general radicalization situation that we've been hearing about in this committee, that had happened, from what we know, around 2014 at least, there have been some information on this. And from 2015, certainly, there have been growing, the environment was being radicalized in certain sections. Now, that was the time you became Prime Minister after a long layoff from 2004 to 2015, January, you were sworn in as Prime Minister again. Now, so it was under your watch, in a sense, that this reports also, which you said you got from your ministers for law and order, that you got to know that there was a growing radicalization process. Isn't that correct?
We got to know 2014 there had been, but there was also different analysis. One is that they were hot-tempered after the Aludgama incident. But after 2016, you could see a trend coming in, and that was also reported by the, not only by the security angle, but also even by political figures.
You know, with regard to the political angle, particularly looking at Kathankudi, we've had evidence before this committee that says that Kathankudi was like a different country almost, not like any other town in Sri Lanka, even by looks. And the ordinary laws, even with regard to traffic, etc., did not obtain in Kathankudi. Now, if you got information such as that, what action did you take?
I had no information, solid information that the laws and all were not being operated. It was mainly that it was a center, it seems to have had it had been a center of this ISIS type of thinking. We have no information of a terrorist movement, and that they were copying some other ISI's ideology, and they were trying to make some of the buildings look more like Middle East than Sri Lankan. So those were the informations that I had, but I had nothing about them trying to enforce their own laws. There was the demand, I know, in those areas for the Sharia law to be implemented.
You earlier stated that you dealt with it politically, that you spoke to certain political parties, etc.
Yes.
Could you elaborate
I
on that?
spoke to our partner parties, the Muslim Congress, the Sir Richard Baduddin. I also spoke to independent figures because it was best that it be combated. What was not, if it are not terrorism, it was best combated in a by the political people. I think there was a concept paper given by the defense minister also, which urged that this type of political activity should be met with counter political activity.
Are you able to say that that had been successful?
I can't say that there was signs of it, especially during the local authority elections in 2018. There was more groups, but to a certain extent, it had been contained by the different factions. There were so many political factions in that area outside the political parties.
The coming to the bomb attacks that happened on Easter Sunday, now we heard you say that your own security division was not informed of this, but we have heard that certain ministers and MPs security details knew about this and had told them subsequent to the attack that they had prior knowledge. I want to clarify as to whether your security division also got to know before but did not keep you informed, or they did not get to know at all.
They didn't get to know at all. I questioned them because a few days just before the Sinhala and Tamil New Year, I had been up to Nuwara, and I was concerned, and even they were concerned why I had not been. I was moving around freely in Nuwara, but there was no such information. Then I came down to Colombo. We had no information at all, and that the IGP also accepted the fact that it not gone to us. If you look at the letter, there nothing said, nothing that says into the Prime Minister's Security Division.
The events after the bomb attacks, you said that you went to the Defense Ministry because they didn't turn up when you asked them to come, and it was getting delayed, and you thought it best go to the Defense Ministry and meet with them. Did you encounter any resistance on the part of anybody there of you dealing with this issue?
No, I took the chair. I was the Prime Minister. First, they were making some statements, so I said, you all make that to the media. There was some statement. Finished that, I left the room, and then I came in and I spoke to all of them and told them to take action immediately. I must say, in fairness to the police and all, they moved in immediately. And by evening, they had some results of what was happening. They said they knew, they had inclination of who had done this, and the CID and all moved in very, very quickly, I must say. I must also say that if you look at the events of all this, really what happened between 9th April and 21st April, very fast with this information, the attack seems to have come and they were discussed on the 9th of April. You generally found that 10th, 11th, 12th, a lot of people, officials, all were out of Colombo because the long Sinhala Tamil New Year holidays. So government was not as active as earlier, but I made it a point to come back soon as possible, just for a few days. And it's between what happened between the 9th and the 20th that is important, 21st.
On the 16th, there had been an explosion in Kathankudi area of a motorcycle. When did you hear about that?
I heard it the next day, I think, 17th.
On the 17th?
17th or 18th, yeah. 17th or 18th, one of the 2 dates I heard.
Some of those who gave evidence here from the intelligence sector told us that that was when they realized that the information they got around the 4th, 5th, etc. was serious. and that then they started looking for more information. Now, when you heard about it on the 17th, what action did you take?
I inquired about it, but there was nothing more that came out of it. They were inquiring into it.
But by the 17th, when you got to know about
17th or 18th, I am not sure.
around that time when you got to know about that explosion, did you have any knowledge as to the contents of that note dated 9th April?
No, I had no knowledge at all. I had no knowledge of it. I treated it as a separate incident.
Having been at several Security Council meetings under several regimes, having now Prime Minister for the 5th time, are you able to say whether the information that was available on that letter on the 9th of April is something that should have been taken more seriously and action taken accordingly?
Yes, I also say that I should have been informed. I was in Sri Lanka. I was out just during the New Year time, but I came down after that.
Have you asked anyone as to why you were kept in the dark?
No one was able to give me a satisfactory explanation.
Are you able to tell us, Honorable Prime Minister, whether this is due to the fallout between you and the President that occurred late last year?
I cannot say. I can't judge on it what it is. That
No, but we have evidence from you that says that you attended National Security Council meetings until October. Thereafter, you had not attended even a single meeting. Even one that you know about, you were not invited for. Your view that there must be a separate Minister for Law and Order had not been acceded to by the President. The whole country knows that relationship between you and the President had broken down by the end of last year. Would you say that was in any way a contributory factor to this serious intelligence information not being acted upon?
it's difficult to comment because during that period where there was supposed to have been some agitation, I was informed. I didn't get a report, but I got information. I really don't know why they didn't even send it to my security division.
No,
Every minister was
the very fact that even today you are not able to find out why you were not informed, isn't that an indication of a strained relationship between you and the Minister of Defense?
relationship has not been as cordial as it was before, and this is why I thought that this matter should be investigated by a parliamentary committee, and I supported this motion. It was better an independent committee go to that. President had also appointed a separate committee headed by a Supreme Court judge, but I thought best that the answers to these questions comes from Parliament Select Committee inquiry or from the other committee that the President appointed.
So since you supported this motion for a Parliamentary Select Committee, which was actually supported by all parties in Parliament, would you say as Prime Minister, you too bear some responsibility for the lapses that resulted in these attacks taking place on the 21st of April, Easter Sunday?
No, I said so at the very beginning because under the Constitution, the Cabinet is in charge of the government machinery. And when there is a serious breakdown in the government, when there is a breakdown like this in the security apparatus, then we as a government can't run away from it. We didn't know, certainly, but that means that we can run away. That's why we have to find out what happened.